How are you?
Hi, fine, and you?
Great, thanks.
At last, we can chat together.
But I'm sorry, what did you say?
At last, we can
Oh,
chat.
yes. Yes, this is great. It's nice to meet you. My name is Jen. What's your name?
My name is Kerem. I'm
Kerem.
calling from Turkey, Istanbul,
Great.
and try to develop my speaking English.
Great. Well, it's good to talk to you. I have a lot of students from Turkey, and I always love to talk to people from Turkey. It's a pleasure.
Really, have you been in Turkey before?
I haven't. I hope to go someday. I actually have a good friend who lives in Istanbul, so I'm hoping it's on my list of places I'd like to visit.
Okay. It's good to see you in here.
Thank you. It's good to see you too. Have you ever visited the United States?
No, I haven't been in the United States before, but in my plans, in my bucket list,
Yes.
one of the important items is visiting United States.
Oh, that's good. Well, we would
Okay.
love to have you do that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I read your info and saw you are teaching computers and robotics, I think.
I am. Yes, I teach high school computer science and robotics. Yes.
Okay, what about computer science? Are you teaching programming languages or just infrastructure?
Programming languages. So
Wow,
mainly Python and Java, a little bit
mainly
of C++.
Python and Java.
Yes.
C++. I know C++.
Okay.
I
Just
have graduated from computer programming and
good.
I know C++, assembler, Pascal, SQL, a little bit Visual Fox Pro,
Oh,
and
that's great.
a little Delphi.
That's great. Yes, you have actually a much better background than I do. I started out as an English major, English education major. So my programming knowledge has come a lot from learning on my own, and also some training that I've gotten as part of my job. So I live in a very little town, small town, and when I decided to go back into teaching, there were no English positions open, and there was a computer science position open. So I was crazy enough to apply for this job, even though I had little background in it. I knew that there was training involved, and I knew that I could learn a lot on my own. So I went ahead and did that. I got hired. I was sent to several hours of training, many hours of training, actually. And so now I'm teaching computer science. But the interesting thing about my position is that there's a lot of English involved, a lot of writing papers. My students have to describe what they're doing on paper and be able to communicate it with their team and also with me and sometimes with an audience, depending on what kind of project we're doing. So I can combine the two, and it's working pretty well.
It's true. Everybody programming or computer science is learning on computer, but it's, I think, totally false. You should first try to write down on a paper
Yes.
to build a model and to write down the algorithm.
Yes.
Then you can transform this algorithm to a computer language.
Yes, that's right. And it has a lot of commonality between, other types of syntax, grammar. Every computer language has a set of rules, just like any language does. So that's the way I approach it, and I think it's helped me a little bit.
The main problem is learning language syntax is a totally different thing. On the other hand, you should learn the logic, how computer works, and to build the logical model of the algorithm.
Yes, absolutely. Logic is most important. So that's great. It's good to talk to someone who is in that field.
Really? Okay. What about English teaching? Do you have any chance to start English teaching again?
Maybe. I've invested so much into the computer science now that I'm not sure if I will want to go back to teaching English other than on Cambly. But we'll see. I'm not sure what my future holds. I've played with the idea of going overseas and teaching English, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Well, what about the differences between American English and United Kingdom English? Do you have problems in your school? Because I think you're in the middle of somewhere in United States. So
Yeah.
most of, maybe all of your students are native.
Yes, that's right. I am in the middle of the United States. I live in a state called Missouri. So we're kind of in the heart of the country. And yes, they're all native, mostly. I should say mostly. I've got a few students who come from different places. One is from the Philippines. One is from India. And I had a student for a little while from Eastern Europe, but he's gone now. So it's very rare, though. Most of my students are definitely native speakers.
Weren't they wonder about the differences between two accents or two languages? Because sometimes it seems not like an English. American English and United Kingdom's English are totally different.
Yes,
sometimes
they are. They're a lot different. Yeah, we use even different vocabulary. So it can be confusing. So I think it's good for English learners to practice listening to both. Yes.
In Cambly, I have a chance to talk different people, so I can compare the differences between these languages, and also the different differences between the areas. I've been in Scotland 15 years ago, and they speak totally different English. Totally different. It's so hard to understand what they say.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, but it's the interesting thing about the human ear and the brain is that with practice, we can learn to understand. So it's just a bit of ear training that we have to do. It doesn't take very long with enough practice. Yes.
I've been a member of Cambly, I think, for a month, and did practice more than 15 lessons. Now I can compare myself now and my English before this 1 month. So I learned a lot with talking people from different countries, different areas, and with different languages, not languages, accents. So now it's easier to understand people from different areas.
Oh, that's great. And are you picking up on the differences in vocabulary as well, or is it mainly just the sounds of the accents that you're learning?
Vocabulary is a problem, but you can pass it with using a dictionary. That sound, sometimes you cannot understand anything. One piece in a whole sentence.
Yes, well, I've found that even a native speaker sometimes has difficulty understanding what another native speaker is saying. For instance, when I'm watching TV, sometimes I have to stop and look at the person that I'm watching with and say, what did he say? Because different people they speak differently, even if it's not a different accent. They might mumble, speak more softly, speak more, maybe speak faster. So it's just a listening skill for everyone. Even native speakers have to really tune their ears to listen and to learn to be good listeners in conversation.
Yes. Besides Cambly, I and my wife try to watch TV shows, American or English BBC made TV shows without subtitles. Try to understand what they say.
That's a very good practice.
It helps a lot. I and my wife's English also developed with this method.
Oh, that's great. And is there a certain show that has been most helpful for you? Or?
Yes, Kominsky method. It's Michael Douglas's show.
Oh, okay.
It's the name of the show is Kominsky Method. Kominsky is his surname, who was teaching about acting. He's an old actor, retired actor, and the dialogues between Michael Douglas and Alan Arkin, the other star in the show, are very slow, smooth, understandable, and it helps us to develop our English. And now the second season was just started, and we totally watch the show without subtitles.
Oh, that's great.
And, not 100%, but 90% of the dialogues we could understand.
Oh, that's exciting. It's really good to be able to do something like that because you can see your progress very easily.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Most of the people that I ask that question to tell me that Friends is the show that they watch. You're the first person that has given me another one, so I'm glad to add one to the list of things that I can recommend or shows that I can recommend.
It's also a pretty show, funny, daily life drama, and each chapter is on around 20 minutes. Not so long, not boring.
Oh yeah.
So it was a great show. Watching these problems with these old peoples, because they are discussing with the problems about their age, because they are over 60s right now.
Okay.
So we can also understand the jokes. We can laugh without using any subtitles or any translation.
That's great. You know, I've often wondered if people from other cultures find American humor funny, because different cultures seem to have a different sense of humor when it comes to television programs. So it's good to hear that's an amusing show for you.
I think you shouldn't amazed about it, because Hollywood is running all of the world with the movies. So the other culture, the people from other cultures now very familiar with the American humor.
Okay.
It is not difficult to understand. We have not just started to watch TV shows or movies from United States. We started from 1950s.
Oh yeah.
With white black television shows.
Oh, okay, that's great. Good.
So it's one of our life.
Yes. Well, tell me how effective has conversation been for you? As you've used Cambly, have you seen a lot of progress with that? Yes.
With Cambly, I developed my speaking, I think, very a lot. But of course, your opinion is much more valuable for me. At the end of conversation, I will ask you to evaluate my English level.
Okay.
But I believe after starting using Cambly, my English developed. I'm working in an international group, so I use my English a lot. But writing is more effective than speaking. I write so many emails to the headquarters, to the people, and also reply their demands. But written English is totally different from speaking.
Yeah.
You can use dictionary, you can use some tools to fix your mistakes, but speaking is totally different. You should speak properly, and the opposite sides should understand.
Yes.
This is the most important thing.
That's very true.
I hope you understand well.
Absolutely. Yes. You're doing great. It's very easy to talk to you. Yes. You're welcome.
Okay. What about chapters about your students, especially in high school? While when I was studying in high school in English lessons, the most difficult chapter was reported speech, because I didn't understand the logic why we use always past tenses after the main sentence. Now I know I have a logic, but at that time I had very difficulties to understand, and I always made mistakes in the exams when I try to convert regular sentences to reported speech sentences. But now I know the rule, I know the logic, but this is the most difficult chapter for me. What about your side? In a native English country in high school, which chapter, especially in English, the students find the most difficult? What do you think?
Well,
vocabulary, grammar, or any specific chapter in grammar?
I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was thinking about this recently. The tenses for a native speaker are actually a little more intuitive, because we grow up hearing it, and so it becomes something that we don't think about much. We don't consciously think about the different tenses. You know, there are 3 tenses, and then there are 4 subtenses within those 3 tenses. But if you ask just the average native speaker, can you explain the tenses to me? They would probably say, I know, but I can definitely use them correctly. I just don't know if I can explain them.
Especially for American people, past perfect, I think, is the most difficult tense.
Yes.
To use, to understand.
Yeah, to explain it, to understand it, yes, but hearing it or speaking it is pretty intuitive for us. So for an English learner, it's something that has to be practiced for a while, but eventually, and even an English learner can internalize it, and they can start to use adverbs as a clue, and also their ear. So eventually, after reading and practicing it enough, even a English learner will recognize when it's used incorrectly and be able to correct themselves and say it the right way. So, but as far as what's the most difficult for native speakers, maybe just, I don't know, when you said report, and maybe explain that to me a little bit more so I understand exactly what you mean. Do you mean when you're writing and having to give some sort of report on a subject, or what did you mean by that?
Reported speech is something like, he said that he did something. But when we say he did something, actually we are talking about present tense, not the past tense. But we built the structure with past tense because we started the sentence with past. He said that yesterday, that he did something.
Yes.
It means that we always do this. But he said that, so I built the structure with did instead of do. That's why I understand very wrongly while I was in high school. But now I know the logic. If you, for example, if you talk about a general conversation, for example, he said that he does this every day. You can say that it's not wrong.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about a general structure, that's why I confused. Why this use past tense? Why we didn't use present, simple present tense? It was always confused my mind. But now I know the logic. And oppositely, and in a strange way, the easiest part of English for me, the passive voice. I easily understand and started to use while I was in the beginning of English.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I always compare these two subjects. Passive voice, the easiest part for me, and reported speech is the most difficult one.
That's very interesting. And I've never really thought of it that way, because like I said, for tenses for native speakers, it's just kind of this internal thing. We don't even think about whether it's passive or whether it's reported speech or whatever. We just talk and it comes out. So, so we really have to think, we really have to consciously think about it when we're explaining it. And as a matter of fact, when we teach English in the schools here, yes, we do teach the different tenses and the names of them, but we don't spend a whole lot of time on having them memorize those names.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, because you're born with it.
That's
we
right.
learn it later. We learn it then.
Yeah.
So to learn or to teach people how to use English language, we should separate the all English into chapters. If clauses, different chapter, tenses, different chapter, and each tenses also individually different chapters. Simple present, present continuous, future, future continuous, verb ing, past tense, past perfect, present perfect, present perfect continuous.
Yes.
And you should also teach people the timeline of the tenses.
Yes.
This is very, very important.
Yes.
And when you can build the logical structure of the timeline, it's easier to understand tenses. For Turkish people, it's more easier because in Turkish language we have also tenses.
Okay.
So not similar with English, but we have a timeline and we use some tenses to describe the sentences. So it's when you understand the logic, it's easy to understand, easy to learn.
Yes, that's true. And I think it's maybe Turkish people have a little bit of an advantage since they have those tenses, like you said, not used in the same way. But there are some cultures that don't use tenses like that. And like, for instance, the Chinese culture, it's probably more difficult. Actually, I know it's more difficult for them to learn our tenses because it's unlike anything that they do in their language.
I think this makes the English is very popular in all of the world because it has not restrict but almost restrict rules. So if something has rules like computer programming, and if you follow these rules, it's easy to learn.
Yes.
For example, in German language, there are rules, but also there are so many things you should memorize.
Yes.
It is difficult.
Yes.
If, for example, they use articles, das, der, die, and there is no restricted rule when you should use das or when you should use der. There is no restricted rule. You should just memorize it.
Exactly.
And it is very difficult. There are millions of words.
Yes.
It's something like irregular verbs in English.
Yes.
It's not a long list, but of course you should memorize it.
That's right.
So it's not easy to use, but in all English language, it is a very small part of thing you should memorize. The rest of the part, if you learn the rules, you can apply with these rules, and you can learn by yourself. You don't need someone to teach you.
That's
just a good grammar book can help you.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good observation. I took 4 years of German, so I know exactly what you're talking about when I was in high school. Unfortunately, taking 4 years of German has done me little good at this point because even though I could write and I could read at the end of those 4 years, we never really practiced conversation. So I couldn't speak German. I could just read and write it. And if I would have had something like Cambly to practice, maybe I would still know it today. But today I can't remember very much of German at all. I'd like to go back and.
I'm totally agree with you, 100%. So I stopped try to learn German and focus to make my English perfect. I attend Cambly software, Cambly platform to develop my speaking. I try to read books. I try to watch movies and TV shows from different platforms. So try to make my English better and better. Because my aim is at the end of this session, move from Turkey to a European country or maybe United States to challenge myself, to try myself.
Oh, that's great. And I think that you're going about this in such a wonderful way. You're not just using one platform or one tool, but you're using many. So like you say, you're watching videos and you're reading books and also practicing conversation with a native speaker. I think that's so important to be successful, to try to use as many different tools as possible. But conversation, yes, but conversation is definitely key because if you can't practice that part of it, it's very difficult.
Also, it develops your trust, your self-confidence.
Yes.
It is most important. In my country, so many people know the English language, how they can use, how they can read and write. But when the time came to be they are obligated to speak, it is very difficult for them to start speaking because they try to make this speaking perfect, and they afraid to make mistakes.
Yes.
This is the main, I think, important. This is the most important thing. But I believe that you should try. Even you make mistakes, you should speak, and someone friendly, the opponent of this conversation, will fix you, will motivate you, and will correct your mistakes, and you will learn not to make more mistakes.
Absolutely.
This is the most important thing.
You're totally right. Making mistakes is part of learning. We can't really learn without making mistakes. It's very difficult to learn without making mistakes. And even native speakers make mistakes. So yes. Yeah, that's a really important point. And I know how difficult, or I have a little bit of an idea how difficult it is to practice for the first time, because I was trying to learn Portuguese and I decided to get online and speak to someone from Brazil to try to see if I could say anything, if I could understand anything. I only spoke for 15 minutes, and at the end of it, I was so exhausted. So I understand it's difficult, it's scary, but it is the best way, like you say, to learn, to build your confidence and to progress. Because when you make those mistakes, you learn something new every single time.
Of course. If you don't try, you just stand on start point, 0.
That's right.
You should try. Sometimes you should go back to starting point, but you should try to progress.
Yeah.
This is the most important thing.
Yeah.
If you don't try anything, you just stand in the beginning point.
That's right. Very good point.
Okay, Jen, thank you very much for your lovely conversation.
You're very welcome.
Support. We just have 2 or 3 minutes.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure speaking to you. You're doing a great job. It's very easy to understand you, very easy to have a conversation with you. So it's a pleasure.
Maybe in near future, we will have another conversation. Then you can evaluate and compare my development.
That sounds great. I would love to do that.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great evening or afternoon, I think it is where you are.
I think it's afternoon. It's 3 o'clock right now, 3 p.m.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.